All right, let's go ahead and start. Okay, this is ICON PREP community meeting number 3 on March 7th. And today we have Catalyst, UBIK Capital, RHIZOME, Interblocktech, Mineable, Espanicon, Icon Plus, ICONBet, ICONation, and POS Bakerz. Today we don't have that many topics to talk about, but to start off, let's just do a quick walkthrough of Consensus. It's a big conference in May that a lot of PREPs are sponsoring. So we just want to run through and give some details about what's going on with that and ICON. So does anyone want to start with this one? Corey?
Sure. So I first want to say that this is an incredible initiative between different PREPs. So many PREPs have come to support this event, and it's so crucial because Consensus is the largest blockchain conference in the world, in the hub of the world. And last year, in 2019, over 4,700 attendees came, over 100 sponsors were there. It's a gigantic conference, and it's almost incumbent to attend for exposure. And I really have to say this collaborative ethos that we are making and creating between different PREPs truly is setting a new precedent of mutual collaboration and mutual expansion. So I really want to say how much I personally appreciate everybody who's been involved. And I think that it's really great that we are participating in this great event. So thank you so much for letting me speak.
Yeah, so we're going to be a 2-block sponsor. And I think Russell has been mainly in charge of this. But he's not here today. So I'm just gonna run through a few things. So we'll be a 2-block sponsor, which means our name will be next to big names, really big names like Bakkt, IBM. There's a few other ones. There's a screenshot out there if you want to take a look. And just to highlight the teams, there's quite a number of teams involved. There's UBIK Capital, ICONation, RHIZOME, WeBlock, ICONVet, Mineable, Catalyst, Symmetry SLC, Icon Chicago, Parrot9, Icon DAO, and Reliant Nodes. So that was the list as of March 3rd. So quite a lot of PREPs contributing. And lately there's been a lot of talk about, like I saw a few people talking about this today, like what's going to happen if it gets canceled or if it gets postponed. So basically, like, it's not going to be a thing where we spent 50 grand on this and we're just going to lose out on it if it gets postponed or something. So people don't have to think about that. We're not wasting our funds on something that might or might not happen. So the idea is if it gets postponed, we're still going to go and we'll still be able to do the sponsorship and all of that. So that's just to curb any concerns that are due to the virus that we have at the moment. Bitburger, do you want to mention anything about this?
Yeah, so we have a sponsorship for 2 of the largest screens that are going to be on each side of the stage in the grand ballroom. I forget the details because it's so complicated, but we've got one ad that's going to run for 10 minutes at the beginning and the end of each meal session. And then we've got static ads that run in between for the duration of the meals as well. And that's where everybody gets together for breakfast and for lunch, and we'll be socializing. There's 2 very large screens in the front, and then there are also, I believe, 4 large screen televisions across the back, which maybe, I'm only assuming, where people are going to be serving up the food possibly. And so we are going to be all over that as well. I think what we're kind of agreed to do was to do a static, very large logo for the Icon logo during our static section, because we were talking about, do we want to have static ads that have things people need to focus on and read on? And of course, the size is an issue. The large screens are great, but the smaller screens, and people are distracted and they're eating and they're looking at their phones. So it's almost like me personally, I thought it would be a good idea to capture the glances, right? Anytime somebody looks up, looks around, peripheral vision, subconscious, that sort of thing. If we've got our presence all over that room, that's a positive. So as far as the videos that are being created, we've got ICONBet members, and we've also got Mineable working on some stuff. And I'm excited. To be honest, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. I'm looking at the 2-block sponsors from last year, actually, and it's all these huge companies like eBay, BlockFi, AWS, etc. So, I think it's going to mean a lot just to have our brand up there along with the rest of these guys. Just it's really that higher tier of sponsorships. So, does anyone else have any questions or have anything to add or to suggest?
I just would like to make a quick comment on that one, actually. Icon Plus team here. We shouldn't get really concerned about the cancellation of the event itself, because although some events have been cancelled in the US as we speak now, and we're aware of about 3 events that have been cancelled in March, when they do get cancelled, what they do guarantee is the same level of partnership for 2021. So they postpone it for a year, but you don't lose your money that you've paid. They guarantee you the same level of partnership. And actually, it does work a little bit better because they freeze the costs for the year to come. So I don't think people should be concerned here about losing their money or their funds, because worst case scenario, touch wood, is if it doesn't happen, we will get it next year.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's hope they don't postpone it a year, because that's really, really far away, and I think we want eyes on Icon now, within the next few months. But yeah, I guess the main point is we're not going to lose out on anything. I saw a few people in the community talking about that and how it could potentially be a waste of money if that happens. So just wanted to mention that's not going to happen.
Gotcha. And also maybe something to cater for. I think it'd be good to discuss today, if we get a chance to, plan B, if it does get cancelled within 2020, what do we do otherwise? What other activity from a marketing perspective do we need to do to get the exposure that we need to Icon Foundation, if it does get cancelled, that is?
Yeah, we can discuss that right now, actually. We don't have that many topics for today. So just to kick it off, I think if something as big as Consensus gets canceled, I have a feeling that other conferences that we could potentially attend at that time would also get canceled. So I think in terms of marketing things, it would have to be meetups that we do on our own. Like if we're talking about actual events that people can go to and talk to people, I think it would have to be something we would have to host. I don't think there's time to prepare for any conference within the next few months. I don't even know if there are any. There's Korea Blockchain Week, but I think they're also postponing or canceling. So
yeah, I think so. I think in the near term, a lot of the larger companies are concerned about their staff and the safety of the attendees of those events and customers and what have you. So a lot of them are taking the precautionary measure to actually go ahead and cancel. And that's why I don't want to be the skeptic here, but I'm just preparing you for the worst case scenario for 2020. It's not bad case, we're not going to lose funds, but it's highly probable it's going to happen. What we should do, or maybe put our heads together to think about a secondary option, which is something like a webinar, maybe some additional marketing activity that we could allocate our brain power, resources to it within 2020, so at least get the ball rolling, get a bit of traction, get a bit of expansion, and hopefully until Constances decides to happen, whenever it happens.
Yeah, I think the main problem that comes to mind is the great thing about Consensus is we get a lot of people who are outside of the Icon vacuum. So we have a lot of people who don't know about Icon, who are going to stroll by. They're going to see our ads. My concern is if we host some other kind of marketing activity, even a meetup or a conference or something that's online. It's how to get people outside the Icon vacuum to join. Like how do we incentivize people to want to learn about this in the first place? That's always really tough, because oftentimes I feel like people who don't know about Icon don't want to learn about Icon, and it's It's how do we convince those people?
That's a very good point you've raised, and that's the difference between community marketing, which is an outreach within the community, which is the people that you know, and an outside of community outreach, and that's what we need to classify. Normally it falls within the quantitative marketing, but we need to decide at one point what do we need. What are the demographics that we're after? What are the type of people that we're after, and that kind of stuff to work out the right campaign for that. But I totally agree with you. I think a lot of the activity that's happening now, articles, news, tweets, etc., they are within the vacuum, so they're not really bringing extra, people or interests from outside of that.
Would you guys be open to? I just sent it to all the panelists. Would you guys be open to possibly, if consensus is canceled? I mean, I don't see why we still can have a meetup collectively together to discuss ICON. It may not be the marketing, how large it was at consensus, but I think that if we can collect our resources together and we can all meet up, specifically in NYC, around the same time, I don't see why we can't have a very extremely productive conversation and ideas being spread around in a more formal manner, just in case consensus is canceled. And I just read the news that there's more than now 70 cases of corona in New York. I'm hoping this does not get canceled. Believe me, I don't want this to be canceled. But if possible, I mean, we could still have an NYC type meeting where as many different P reps can come as they can, and we can find a venue where we can all discuss things and maybe make PowerPoints, presentations, videos, almost like an ICON event that's not exclusionary, where we can have a venue where anybody can come, but at least we have the majority of P reps there that we can discuss different initiatives together on a more formal standpoint. So I don't know if you guys would agree with that, but that's just an idea maybe thought of.
I have something to say, but I think someone else should talk first. How about
No, I was about
Brandon?
to say, yeah, that's a good idea. The question is how to get outside of the ICON network, get outside of us. Because, I mean, if you brought in Chainlink or some of our other partners, something like that too, that's not a bad idea, but we need to do something to expand it beyond just ICON.
Agreed, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I see two main channels that we could take. Like, channel number one is to leverage existing people in the space who already have built up, people who might watch them or people who might listen to their podcasts. Like, I think the podcast route would be interesting. It seems like it's difficult to get someone from ICON to appear on a podcast. For example, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I don't think we've appeared on Palm's podcast. I don't think we've appeared on Unchained or Unconfirmed. Charlie Shrem has a podcast. There's like 5 or 6 big crypto podcasts that I don't think ICON has ever been on. And a lot of people listen to those podcasts, especially Palm's podcast. And now he's kind of expanding to topics beyond Bitcoin, which is surprising to me based on his history. But since he seems to be expanding to topics and guests outside of Bitcoin, I think it would be great to get someone from ICON in there. Like, that's our problem right now. I don't think, like, I think that as a P rep, I think there's many teams that would happily appear on his podcast. But the issue is, I'm not sure if he would interview a P rep from ICON versus someone from the team. So I don't know if that's something we can pursue. Like, if we can talk to him, and then maybe we can reach out to like Ricky or Scott or something and say, just, this is a really big opportunity. He obviously has quite the influence on the industry. So that's, I think, one thing that we could do to get more people aware, and to lessen the percentage of marketing that we do within the community. And then, like, the second channel, like you said, is to is to get involved with other coins and stuff. You know, like if you make someone else look good, then they're going to spread it back and then make you look good. So if we get involved with Chainlink or something and have some kind of meetup where we can make a presentation about like possible future applications of Chainlink and Icon, like I can see supporters of Chainlink, I can see them sharing that with people with their own community. So that's another channel that that we could pursue as well.
Yeah, I think these are all great ideas. If you don't mind me throwing the spanner in the works, and I think the objective of the meeting is to suggest ideas, but also in certain times challenge each other so that we could, you know, bring the best out of the team, this team that we've got together. I think we need to think about it from two different perspectives. Perspective number one, from a crypto perspective, and this is the short term. You know, we're trying to enhance the price, the awareness, the buyers, and all that kind of stuff into the Icon network. Great idea, and I don't disagree with that. But I think for the mid-term to the long term, we've got to look at it from the ecosystem perspective as well. How do we make people that are not necessarily into crypto yet aware of what Icon Foundation is doing, the impacts that the Icon Foundation will have on the conventional markets, how it's going to disrupt the conventional markets, and therefore they should be part of the project from now. There's a lot of visionaries there. If we go to them with the right business case, with the right pitch, they would be interested. So I think we need to kind of think about two, you know, parallel kind of marketing campaigns. One targeting the half-sold people, which I would call the crypto people, and the other one targeting the non-crypto people simultaneously. How do we do that? The crypto people is a lot easier because there are channels through Twitter, through public influencers, through YouTube, through videos, for, as you said, get together, partnerships with existing, you know, successful tokens, and we could bring that awareness to the market. The second one is actually, this is where we'd need the foundation even more, because we'll start talking to the foundation, okay, what are the partnerships you're doing? Who are the people that you're partnering with outside of South Korea? Because the word in South Korea is quite spread already. Don't think a lot of work is required there anymore. I think now we need to start thinking internationally. So which are the companies that you're potentially partnering with? Which are the companies that you're discussing stuff with? And then we could build our target list or the existing client base of people that are somehow related to those companies. And then we could think about it, you know, from that point onwards. I hope I made sense and I didn't waffle too much.
So your group number two, the people in that group are not necessarily investors, right?
Group number two are people that would be, let's say, potential investors. Let's call them potential investors. And probably there's a lot of retail money there that we're not tapping into, because it's double challenging to go to somebody that fully believe in Chainlink and actually try to convince them to come to the Icon ecosystem. Yes, it's possible. It's relatively easy. But a lot of people that are long-term hodlers, or, you know, they invested in a project for a reason. So it's a lot easier, I think, from my perspective, to go into the 99% of the remaining market, which is the non-crypto markets, and then bring some new faces into it that are potentially already kind of looking into what does the blockchain do? How is it going to interrupt, you know, disrupt the market and that kind of stuff, to bring on to the Icon Foundation right from day one. They're going to be, you know, buying into the vision. They're going to understand the work we're doing, where we're heading, what's the target, etc. And therefore, it's going to be a lot easier saying to them. But I'm not knocking down, you know, yes, we've got to do the campaign for the existing kind of crypto users, but also I think we need to start thinking mid-term to long-term.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Does anyone else have something to add to that?
I guess I could mention that Galaxy S8 is Icon Plus for what it's worth. And they just recently joined in the marketing channel that we opened up and have been talking about, you know, plans. I don't see any reason why we couldn't, you know, work on the conference and have a completely separate marketing plan put together for everything else. So at the exact same time. So, you know, I'm looking forward to it. These guys seem to have a lot of experience and are using a lot of words I'm not familiar with, which makes me feel good. Honestly, so you know, I welcome what they come up with. You know, the issue is always funding and trying to figure out how we can work that out. But real issue I think that we've had from the beginning is we don't necessarily have, including myself, somebody that has the skills to orchestrate something like this. So hopefully we can do that. On every level, podcasts, publications, YouTube, whatever, everything, everywhere. We've got funding now, so we got to structure it and we got to execute on it.
Okay. I have a few more thoughts on marketing, but I think let's move on to the next few topics and come back. I think there's going to be time afterwards. So the next two are talking about governance related stuff, and it might actually be a moot point in the future after IISS 3.0 comes out. So I thought we would discuss this anyway. The first question, what can we do to improve vote stagnancy? Motivate the iconists to not just vote and forget, but to be more involved in the community and delegate to active teams. This has been an ongoing question. Does anyone want to mention something about this? Corey?
Sure. I personally think it's not impossible, but I think it's very difficult to come up with a universal solution surrounding this. And the reason why is because we have different voters that have different levels of activity in regards to the ICON ecosystem. There are some that are actively involved in the ecosystem, and there are some that are not. And that's just a fact. So I don't know if there's a specific paradigm shift that we should create that would wholeheartedly benefit every iconist, because some people, they do want to vote and they want to keep their vote stagnant. And as much as that's seen as bad, it's also there are some people that like to have their vote stagnant. But I do believe that this is a topic that should be discussed more frequently. So that's just my take.
Yeah, I think the whole redesign of IISS is to is to remove the financial blame of, because when you have the votes the way that they are now, where it's concentrated at the top, there's financial blame that is put on, the top teams earn a lot and then the bottom teams don't earn enough. I think the whole point of IISS 3.0 is to remove that blame. I'm not going to say if that blame is right or wrong. It depends on what perspective you have, but 3.0 obviously is just one of the main purposes is to remove this, because I've thought about this a lot. I actually don't think vote stagnancy is ever going to be gone. We can't fix that, just because I think a lot of people, they're not actually here. They're here to earn interest on their tokens. They're not here to support teams. Many investors might not care as long as they receive their tokens, and I think that's perfectly fine. If that's what they're looking for a return on their investment, they're just going to vote, because it doesn't make sense for them to keep up and move their votes around, because that's not the sector of the voters that does that. So I guess the rework of the system is going to remove, or is going to change the the financial incentives for the P reps, and I don't know if it's going to take away the power of the votes. I don't think I should speculate too much on it, but anyone else want to mention something about this?
Yeah, I do. And apologies, I'm taking the mic once more.
No,
Icon Plus here. And apologies again for the background noise. It's 11:30 my time, and I was only made aware of the meeting 10 minutes before we started. So, but I do have a couple of points that I would like to make on this topic. I don't think stagnation of votes is necessarily a bad thing. In fact, there is a strategic reason behind it. I don't want to go into the details, but it makes complete business sense to me. I think what we need to do in terms of development is a couple of things. Number one is to include maybe an option to allow for people to claim they virtual points and to restake them if they would like to. So there's a number of people that having to relog to their wallets on a regular basis so that they can kind of just restake and reclaim their ICE calls and then restake them. I think we should allow for an option where they could choose the frequency at which days, number of days they want to reclaim and restake. and probably that will go proportionately to all the people they're voting for based on how much percentages they voted for those teams accordingly in terms of P-reps. That's point number one. Point number two, I think the best way to improve governance is actually by educating voters, as opposed to stopping or limiting the ability the voters have. I think we need to start educating those voters. We need to start creating portals. We need to start quantifying the work the P-reps are doing. I'm not saying this is going to be easy. This is going to be incredibly difficult. But we have a lot of P-reps that are stagnant, that are stationary, that are dormant P-reps, that don't do a lot of work, that are right at the top, but the amount of work they do, the amount of quality they bring to either the foundation, either the ecosystem, the development system, or even the ICON price, the RCX price, is very minimal. So I think we need to find a true, efficient way of actually quantifying that work, publishing it to all the voters so that they could go to a portal, to websites, on the wallet itself, understand exactly who does what, the level of impact on the price, on the ecosystem, and then therefore vote accordingly. Because I might be interested in a developer because I feel we need to develop more dApps. My neighbor might be interested in the price. So we could be, although we could be ranked in a completely different kind of scenario, people could still vote for us based on where they see the ecosystem goes. And that's how I see a truly decentralized, governed kind of democracy.
Thank you.
Corey?
Sure. I was going to say a few things. The first thing is that I agree wholeheartedly that we do need something that can quantify P-rep activity. That's just a fact. And I think that Chain Tech, I think they changed their name. They have a wonderful website called ICONecosystem.io where you can actually check what dApps have been created by which teams. And I really think that's a great idea. I really think that's a great option for people to check. And I'm not sure, but I do know that there's a particular website, not in, I don't know if it's going to go live, but I forgot who's creating it. But there is a website that's supposed to be doing that specific thing, and I forgot the name of it off the top of my head. But I wanted to also bring up maybe a shuffling option. I mean, if voters are not going to vote themselves again, if voters are not going to pay attention to different P-rep teams and all they're caring about is the interest that Brian brought up, why don't we have next to iScore creating a shuffling option where their coins could possibly be shuffled from different P-reps? I mean, it's an option. This is going to be, as Galaxy said, incredibly difficult, but it's good to have all ideas on the table.
Yeah. Previously, something like that was deemed to be very dangerous because it requires your key in order to move your votes around. But recently, they announced, it might have been in the most recent roadmap update, there's staking via smart contract API. So, we don't have much information at the moment, but I think Blockmove brought it up last time in the meeting. That might allow for smart contracts to, I don't know how it's going to work, but to stake on your behalf. So something like that could probably be created to shuffle the votes around. The risk is always, if you're going to move your votes around so often, would that require a tax on how much you're going to get back in return? Because imagine a situation where a majority of people used an option that would move your votes around constantly. That would create an environment where P-reps cannot budget for themselves in the near future. So yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely useful for the people who don't pay attention much, but also I think the second thing is if they're not paying attention much, how are they going to find about this option in the first place?
I agree.
Yeah,
I think changing. Sorry, go ahead, Corey.
Yeah, no, I think that one way to go around that private key problem is that maybe not shuffling the votes once an icon is already voted, but like expanding in that idea is like maybe give an option of randomizing the first vote. And if the vote is going to stay stagnant, maybe giving the icons an options like if they don't care, randomizing that first selection, and it will stay that way. So you won't have any problems with the private keys.
I think the whole case of reshuffling or randomizing is a little bit dangerous, because honestly, we want voters that are fully of understanding of the proposals submitted by those P reps. They buy into the ideology, they buy into the roadmap, and they understand the kind of impact on the ICON Foundation that will bring. They vote to them or for them, and they stick for a period of time. Because actually changing your vote over a period of, every month, every few weeks or whatever, it's not going to be helpful to anybody. Because a lot of the P reps, we're asking for money to go and deliver on projects. If we keep on changing the number of rewards we get on a monthly basis, as Brian alluded to, we're not going to have enough budget to do anything that we want to do or that we said initially we're going to do. So I think we need a level of stagnation and people to trust in the roadmap.
Yeah, I think like that system is more, it's not really about like, might we have funds, like might we have enough funds? It's more just, I think it'll influence how teams plan for the future. Like, even if you just think about it, if someone had to roll a dice to say if you have a job next week, it would certainly influence, what you do this week. So, that's kind of simplifying it a bit, but yeah, I think after thinking about it more, I don't know if shuffling randomly is the way to go. But the main point stands. I think that the improvements that are coming and allowing smart contracts to handle the staking process. Once again, I don't know how that's going to work technically, because the white paper is not out yet. I think that can lead to products and certain things that can help with this problem, but at the end of the day, I think the bigger thing that is on the horizon is IISS 3.0. And does anyone else have anything to say before we move to the last topic? Yeah, POS Bakerz.
I was going to say that if anything, I actually find votes quite volatile in the ICON ecosystem. There's no unbonding period to move from one PREP to another if you're a voter. And of course, there's a bit of stagnancy probably at the top, but anything that is past top 10, everybody has plus or minus 0.1% market share. And if they lose this 0.1% market share or 0.2, they basically leave the set. And we've already seen a lot of people leaving the set, and we've also seen a lot of new players entering the set because they've been doing a good job, or because some have been lucky and unlucky. And sometimes you have a big voter leaving, and you don't know your voters, and you leave the set. Votes are actually quite volatile, and it's probably more volatile than in other ecosystems, to my belief. And as you guys were discussing before, it's actually probably an issue for PREPs, because then for some it's very hard to forecast, what's going to be the next month or the next quarter and which kind of project they can get involved in. As of the voting smart contracts, I think it's a great idea, actually, because statistically most of the voters, they only vote for one person, one PREP, while they should actually diversify, especially if slashing comes in another manner in the future. And this kind of smart contract could be rule based, so that it won't be totally random, but it would be more like a diversification smart contract that diversify based on the criteria of the user, I guess, which kind of size they want, which kind of uptime they want, etc. Yeah, just wanted to add these thoughts on. So stagnancy is more like volatility, and the smart contract, it's a great idea because it can actually be rule-based.
Right. Yeah, I think I foresee that some teams are going to build certain scripts that can take advantage of that. And I think naturally the community and also the P-reps are going to gravitate towards certain options. I don't know, like for example, like since the smart contract is all rule-based, if there was one that was like, hey, like, can you name the top team that you support? And then maybe it'll just say like 60% of your votes will go to that team. And then, hey, like ask for a few more teams that you think are great too, or, you know, what parts you support, like do you support marketing? Do you support technical dev? And then maybe that basket, it can roll around votes for you between different sectors. Like, I think something like that would be cool for sure.
I think that there's a simple idea that I've been thinking about in terms of the voting, but it will involve P-reps to participate, is that we as P-reps are the ones that are more in the knowledge in that we know more about what is happening with other teams and the teams that are collaborating, what teams are not collaborating. So it will be great, in my opinion, to have like a poll between us so that we can, for example, say these are the teams that are, but we need to have a metric on how to measure the contributions, but these are the teams that this week are giving what each of us think about the best contributions, and we create like this poll maybe in the forum and have like a top 10. These are the top 10 teams of this weekend, of this week, and something simple that we can give to the iconists when they vote. But because we have the project page, but the project page right now is it has a lot of projects. So I've seen in the channels that a lot of iconists, when they go to the project page, they get overwhelmed with the amount of projects that we have right now. So we need to simplify and give them something. I don't know if it's good or wrong, but something easy to digest. So if we, between us, create this type of small things like polls that we can vote, and we can say, you know, this team is creating this app. This team, for example, you can see that ICONBet is now in the top 22. They have the blackjack game, and this is really important. And we can have this and maybe on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and we can just give the link to the iconists so they can see, okay, yeah, this is this weekend or this week top 10 teams.
Yeah, I think with any kind of like statistical output that you have, it's always going to be based on the bias of the people who are involved in making that stat. And I think if we've seen in the past, I think the idea of P-reps judging other P-reps is inherently biased as a concept from the start. I'm not sure if having all teams involved in the voting process would reduce that stigma. I think any kind of poll between P-reps should be private, because I don't know, it's just like, it seems like a PR nightmare waiting to happen. If I have to speak frankly about that, you know, like if we do it straight on the forum, you know, certain more, I think, aggressive people in the community, you know, they're going to accuse certain P-reps of forming a cartel, or, you know, like those P-reps always vote for these P-reps. And, you know, I think in the end, something like that would be more counterproductive if it's, you know, if it's like P-reps placing stats on other P-reps. And it's also actually very difficult for P-reps, I think, as the number of teams grow. You know, just speaking for my team, I don't know if we can have a person that can sift through the output of 100 teams and and kind of judge how well they're doing.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, Brian. I think we don't want to limit the democracy there. I mean, we don't want to, whatever we try to build and the ideology that we had initially in terms of creating a fully democratic, decentralized system, and then we start putting limitations for ourselves going down the road, which will jeopardize us because it will jeopardize the teams that joined for one reason or the other, the strategies of those teams, etc. What we need to do is empower the system that we have and make sure the system that we have is tweaked in a working manner. And so I agree. I don't want to put more limitations in terms of how the votes are going, etc. I think giving people total freedom to vote however they want to vote, but educating them is the key to go forward. Just keeping it very, very flexible. On the other hand, one of the concerns that I have, I don't know, we are still within the build it and they will come, right, phase. We are still within the development phase. Building the platform, building the ecosystem, onboarding new companies. Marketing is important, sales is important, etc. But everything is there is the right time for every single activity. And I think whilst we are at the infancy of the blockchain generally, and all those crypto companies now, they're all very compelling and they're all creating very creative, proposals and and propositions to all the developers and people out there. I think we need to be quite competitive to maintain talent within the ecosystem. I'm just thinking within, let's say, the top P reps that we have, or the top 15 P reps, how many P reps do we have that are dedicated to development, right? And if they're not making money, simple as that, if they're not making money, they're not going to be around for long. They're going to go to a competitive ecosystem and they're going to develop stuff over there. What are we doing? What are the plans that we're taking? I know the grant is a really good plan because that gives them at least something to work on in the short term. But what are the plans that we are taking going forward to actually maintain that wealth and breadth of talent within the ecosystem? That's question one. Question number two is probably open question to all the P reps out there, because I think that we need to take that up on ourselves going forward. Because when we see maybe a development, a team of developers that are struggling for votes, I think we need to start creating within the P reps partnerships to actually give them enough resources to allow them to to continue doing what they're doing. I think that's really important, and we need to be vocal about it, and we need to publish that kind of information. So if we are offering partners contracts to developers, and we're creating some kind of joint partnership or collaboration on a particular project, let's mention it. Let's put your name to it. You will get the credit. You will get more votes for it accordingly, and therefore you will get your investment or your return on investment. Having said that, you're doing something really great by actually keeping probably a group of very talented developers within ICON.
Yeah, I think that's already happening. Like the number two thing that you mentioned, ICONation recently helped partner up with Enblaze. You're working with them to develop their product. So I think the top teams are definitely assisting in that regard. But I was just informed that, Brandon, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was on the one thing I think would help is when we go to the wallets and we go pick who we're going to go for. I don't think we need to have it in an order of number 1 to number 100 and whatever. With all those reps, I think we should either randomize it or maybe put them in by category. So if your primary focus as a P-Rep team is marketing, we're going to put you in that category with all the other ones that do the same. If your category, your primary focus is development, we'll put you in a development category. And then randomize those. That way, you're going to lose voters. When you go down to, most voters aren't going to come in. We get new buyers coming in. They're not going to go down to 50 or 60 or 70 and look at all the P-Rep teams. They're going to pick for someone in that top 10.
Great idea.
Yeah, I think you're so right. The wallet definitely needs some more information about the teams. At least it gives context about what field they're working on specifically. Like, right now it's just a long list, and this is something we talked about in the first meeting actually, and the suggestions have been sent in order to make it a bit more friendly. I don't know if it's ever going to come I don't know if it's ever going to come in the official wallet. I think maybe something like that could be more realistic in the short term if it was proposed to. Which team made the other wallet? Reliant.
Reliant.
Yeah.
My Icon wallet, that was Reliant.
Yeah, I think something like that, just going through the bureaucracy would be faster if we approached like a PREP team, because they can work faster. You know, it's less people involved, and maybe if that works out well, then maybe the official wallet would, you know, could have an interface like that as well. But I don't know, I completely agree with you. You know, it makes no sense to just have one long list with no context. There's absolutely no context. Like the only thing I think it says is their location, which at the end of the day, like, who cares like where your team is from? It's not important at all.
Agreed.
So I think like,
and actually,
you know,
one of the
let's talk to
one of the biases that we can see is that the information is, like you said, the location and the amount of votes they already have. So people will tend to vote for the teams that already have the biggest votes, and so maybe what Brandon is proposing, it can be something like a web page, like an interactive web page that you can give to the voters that are asking for it. Like something like whotovote.com, and it will create this little interactive that, okay, these are the teams that are marketing, these are the teams that are developers, and but like in the last meeting, we talked about this a little bit, and there will be a bias because the teams that we created and who is going to, like, is going to be the responsibility of the team that creates the web page, or all the P reps needs to go to that team and say, okay, we are marketing, we are this. So, but we can work on it.
Yeah, and just piggybacking off Brendan's great suggestion, I think also we need to start thinking about either removing or adding productivity percentages to every single P rep there, because I think by default, just providing it for the top 22 and not the rest, it's not really comparing apples to apples when it comes to that particular kind of stats. And also, you know, a lot of voters have heard before, if, you know, the productivity is not 80% or above, they'll get burnt. Therefore, whenever they see 0% against a particular number, they don't understand the process or the workings behind it. And therefore, they get scared to vote for the, you know, the sub P reps. So I think we need to maybe, you know, level the bar there and provide those numbers for everybody that's involved, for every single node that we have.
Yeah,
I can tell you real quick from personal experience that happened to us a lot. Is people would be questioning ICONBet community node, why don't you have uptime? Why isn't your node up? And we checked with our node and our people, and it was fine. This was before we became a main. When we became top 22 at number 22, now we're 24, but it finally hit 99%, you know, 99.9 or whatever, and it's going to stay like that now forever. So I'm sure that influences people's decisions of where they want to vote, because they see some have 99%, some have nothing. So, I mean, what would you do if you were voting? You would take the one that actually showed a number than didn't.
Exactly.
Hold on. Trying to get Rob in here from Insight.
Well, so continuing on this, we need to understand the way the voters are voting. Like what you said is important. That's another thing that in the channels the iconists are saying. So what is this number? What is this 99? What is this? And a lot of people, well, not a lot, but some people are scared of the 6% burn penalty, which actually is not being implemented right now. So there's information on the wallet that is moving the perceptions on the votes of the iconists, but it's not relevant because that value on sub reps is 0. So maybe an iconist is not going to vote for the sub rep because they're seeing that 0 there.
Yeah. So Rob from Insight is here.
Can you hear me?
Sent me a message. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So a few points, specifically on the productivity thing. Yeah, I think it's a completely misleading number right now, but I know I can't really talk too much about it right now, but I'm talking with the foundation about exposing other metrics that would inform voters about how good of a node operator you are or whatever. And honestly, like a lot of this kind of stuff, like, you know, the nodes sort of run themselves until, you know, things go completely wrong and everything like that. And then you just need to have somebody around who has access to the keys and whatnot to be able to respin it up. But generally, you know, with the price and whatever the involvement of our ecosystem, we're not getting attacked. We're not, you know, things aren't really going wrong, you know? So as far as like exposing metrics to the voters that inform them about how they should be voting based on how good of a node operator they are, that's definitely going to change. And that whole entire aspect of the productivity line in there being such a differentiator is not going to be so much of the case. I just want to expand a few comments that I heard before about like the classifications of teams. And I think that that's a really, really, really important point. That like when, you know, if you were building a business model to a company like, you know, like an economic model, you'd have different departments, and you have a marketing department, you'd have a tech department, and then you have all these different departments, and you put your money down the way it is, you know. And if we looked at it right now, I mean, there's no real way to sort of do a roll up to sort of see where all the money is going to. Is it all going to marketing? Is it all going to tech? Where is it really going? You know, because it's all sort of a hodgepodge, you know. So I think that from the whole entire idea of teams, like within the wallet itself, like if you're going to vote, you know, are you going to vote for a marketing team? Are you voting for a dev team and stuff like that? We'll be able to do a lot of interesting stuff with actually understanding where all the money gets rolled up into in the end of the day. What categories are all the teams that are getting all these votes and so on and so forth, you know, so that we can maybe take like a smarter approach from like a macro perspective of where we're trying to get the money to which teams that specialize in different areas and stuff like that. Because right now it's not really possible. It's up to anybody's sort of, you know, way in which they classify themselves, and there's no really way to aggregate all the rewards and where they're actually going based on categories. It just doesn't exist, you know? So I think it'd be very powerful to get people to start classifying themselves and then exposing that within the wallet somehow. And then like expanding on that even further, like, you know, there's a lot of vote apathy going on. I think that we all know that. There's teams that literally are you know, there's teams that are completely inactive, that are just self-staked, that get votes and whatnot from you know, just because voters are clicking buttons, you know, and they don't really do the research and whatnot. And so I was thinking about something along the lines of like, kind of like an ETF of some kind where, you know, you'd get a basket of different teams that you believed in. Like, let's just say you believed in marketing, maybe you could adjust a percentage of marketing, and then that basket would be like some completely non-P-rep team. And again, it gets back to Brian's point. How do you actually judge who the good teams are, who gets into which, you know, basket of different teams and whatnot, you know? But if you can solve that sort of problem and starting to have some sort of unbiased, you know, perspectives on where the votes should be starting to go, we can get people to just sort of say like, hey, I believe in this person, just let this guy choose for me. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Or, you know, maybe I think that this whole ecosystem needs more devs, so I'll just vote for the dev category. Or I believe in marketing, I'll believe in, you know, vote for the marketing category. And then how the money actually gets, you know, put out, whether it's in votes or just straight like grants after that, you know, I think that there's a lot more oversight as far as how the grants get executed compared to how like rewards from votes get spent, you know? So maybe just these ETFs go to just complete, you know, not even to votes, but just like grant funds, you know, things like that. So anyways, a few thoughts on there.
Hey Rob, Icon Plus here. How are you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Good, man. Good to talk to you.
Good. So just to reiterate a couple of the couple of points you made. So the initial one was to publicize basically some sort of economic model or budget paper from each of the P reps, so that the community understand how the money is being kind of spent and being utilized, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could be something as simple as even just like sort of classifying yourself as a team. Like, and you can do it based on percentages. Obviously, we have a lot of teams that are doing a lot of different things, all the way from marketing to tech or whatnot. You know, maybe you're 50% marketing, 50% tech or something like that. And that way, just to give ourselves some, you know, I used to work in finance, but it's been a minute since I used to build economic models and stuff like that. But just to give the metrics that we're trying to use, the KPIs, to try to understand where you're actually allocating your funds to,
Got it. And the second point, we might be onto something here. Maybe, for you guys, for the developers and for the long term, for the ecosystem. But you mentioned something like ETF, and I will take it to more of an index, whereby, voters could be taking different type of rewards based on how well the P reps they vote for do. So there is an incentive for the voters to actually, grind and really think and, do their research about who they're going to vote for, as opposed to a flat, reward percentage, regardless who you vote for. You can almost select like a combination of number of P reps, and that will form your index. And based on how we quantify how those P reps are doing in terms of impact on the ecosystem, your index will pay you back certain rewards. So if you do well, you do your research, almost like you're going to invest your I think in the US it's called 401k, account. You really think about where you're going to be putting, your money and your shares to get you the most rewards. Is that what you alluded to in some sort?
I was alluding more to just like general pools where whether it's votes or just like amassed pools where the rewards get parsed out into grants and stuff like that. I wasn't thinking so much of the lines of the feedback mechanism that you were talking about, because really it's like the former of what I was talking about, which is like pools of grants and whatnot. That can be easily managed and implemented right now, with the technologies and everything. It wouldn't be that hard to execute on something like that. Whereas like implementing something on the smart contract level that actually has to interact many times and associate all kinds of external data, that becomes very difficult,
Yeah, I think to implement something like to have some kind of oversight that takes into account all of the stuff that the P reps are doing, that's really like AI that we won't have for another 15 years or something. But Rob, I think that's a really good idea. That's something I alluded to previously. I was thinking when you register as a P rep, you already submit your email, you submit your Twitter account and all these other different things. Like, why not also submit the sector that you're focused on? Submit one thing like marketing, business dev, that can be used to identify the sector that you're in, and that can be used since it's on the chain. That can be pulled in to whatever interface does the votes, and in the future that could be also used in the APIs for staking as well. So
I think it becomes most useful when we start to see where all the votes are going to.
Yeah.
Right. Like we need to be able to manage this from a macro perspective, across the whole entire, business or ecosystem or whatever, and if we're seeing that all of the votes are going to certain categories, we can try to at least some of the, the marketing teams or whoever the team, the teams that are informing the voters about what to do and everything like that can really start to say like, hey, we need to pump more money in this category. We need more marketing. We need more this, we need more that, whatever it is, And I don't think it should be something as simple as like, we are this team, because there's a lot of teams obviously that are multiple types of teams, and so it should be something along the lines of like a percentage, just like you would have we should have an option to be able to put in like where our money's getting spent. We should have some way to say like 50% this, 100, 20% that, 10% node operation, things like that, we should all sort of have that ability in there to be able to put in those percentages about where the money's going to in the end.
Corey, were you going to say something?
Yes, I was. Actually, towards Robert's point, I think that's a fantastic idea, the ETF idea. And the reason why I say that is this. I was actively involved in a project in late 2017. Maybe you guys remember it. It was Bitcoin's then Ethos, now it's Voyager. And what they did is they made this wonderful addition to their application where anybody who downloaded their application and invested in cryptocurrencies could, instead of, because they didn't, if the novice cryptocurrency investor didn't know anything about the coins themselves, they gave an option for you to pretty much invest in an ETF where there was a basket of different cryptocurrencies that you can invest in. And I think that's a wonderful idea because then it propels you to learn because you are investing in something that's diversified. And I think that that's a wonderful idea. I really do. I saw a lot of good feedback in regards to ethos surrounding that ETF type paradigm. So I think I truly think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah. Looks like we're 1 hour in now, but I just saw some messages from James earlier. I'm sorry I didn't see this until now. He was asking if anyone has followed up with Parrot 9 and Icon to see if any work is being done on the wallet. I think work is being done, but I am not sure if it would cover any of the topics that we discussed today because it's kind of new. But if you guys aren't opposed to it, I think I'm going to reach out to Reliant Node and see if they, if the stuff that we mentioned today could be implemented into a proof of concept of some sort, especially like the thing that Rob was talking about, in order to essentially branch off the PREPs into different sectors that give context into what that team does. It'll. Yeah,
I think there's two sides of it though. There's the ETF, whatever, which is that's sort of how we're calling it right now, of what we're doing. But from the voting's perspective, and that would be an API that you need to implement on the wallet, and definitely talking to Mark would be a really good thing because that might be some functionality that he could easily build in there. But really just from a management's perspective as well, it would be on the community page that you would have people putting in all of this extra information. And that'd be something that we'd want to fund to infinity, give them some extra help basically to get them to implement some of those APIs to allow you to feed that information in and whatnot, So those two parts are going to end up connecting, from an implementations perspective, but they don't necessarily need to be developed in unison. You could have teams be able to input all of that data, and then we could use that to build the aggregates and the roll-ups and everything like that to start to see where all the money's going and whatnot. I think that would be the first start, But then actually implementing on the smart contract level where you're getting voters to be able to implement their votes and then have that parsed out into a number of different teams or go to whatever end up source or whatever, that would be different, that could be done later.
Yeah, let me follow up with you on that maybe on Monday. I'm going to make threads for each of this because I also have a lot more thoughts to share. So we can discuss on there. And I think more people can also discuss on there.
Sure. Just a quick addition to what Rob was saying. I think there's great ideas, and I'm pretty sure those are just kind of the starting point of some good ideas that we might pursue going forward. But as a suggestion, could we also, get those ideas peer-reviewed before we decide to go ahead with them? Because that's going to give us great marketing, material to really go out to the market with. We all kind of seen how Cardano and other projects out there have been, marketed to the market, some of the keywords they've used in their campaigns, etc. And I think when we have ideas like this, groundbreaking ideas or maybe new ideas that would help us improve the governance system, it would be great to get some kind of very well-known companies, universities, research centers to peer review them, get them kind of the seal or the stamp of approval. It will give us, staff to talk about to the wider market.
That's interesting. I never thought of that.
Marketing at the same time. I like it too.
Yeah. I think that's certainly, that's Cardano's, I think that's one of their slogans, I guess.
Scientifically researched. We've heard it time and time again. And, they've sold the life out of it. Good for them. It's correct. They've got it peer reviewed. They've got the stamp and they're using it. I think we're doing great work behind the curtains and we need to also talk about it. So we just got to publish as well as work. And I think we do that. We've got to do that in tandem so that we see the reward for both.
Yeah. Yeah, let's discuss this on the forum further now that we're over 1 hour. Does anyone else have anything quick to add before we log off? James?
Yeah, just on the topic of the newer teams, especially getting a chance to talk to people. We did an AMA with peer reps on Reddit before, quite a while ago. I'm thinking maybe you guys might be interested in doing another one sometime soon. So especially the newer peer reps can get a chance to meet some of the community over there, and we can drag people from Twitter and Telegram over to chat in a sort of a more detailed place where people can sort of lay out some comments about what they want to do and everything like that. And they can kind of evolve into some sticky posts that we can leave up on the subreddit for people to have some info. So yeah, I'll write that on the forums as well.
Idea. Yeah, cool. Anyone else?
I do have a couple of quick requests, maybe points or comments.
Sure.
I think it's the first meeting for Icon Plus, so we're really chuffed and pleased to be here. And this is great conversation, great platform to really get the ideas flowing and get us talking to each other. This is something that we may lack of. But just as to improve the nature of those meetings, may I suggest to maybe we'll have to start the meeting with a catch up on the various points that we've discussed in the previous meeting, maybe in a form of PowerPoint. Those are the points that we discussed. This is the kind of the update on those points in terms of the work that took place as a start, start up to the meeting. And also, and apologies, for my ignorance, do we take meeting minutes, and who's responsible for taking kind of minutes from this meeting here, so that we could all go off and work on those minutes, points forward?
Yeah. So for number one, I definitely think that's a great idea. We can get started on that on the next meeting. For number two, those updates and minutes are actually taken, and I will share the link to you on that. Are you in the PREP community meeting Telegram channel? If not, I'll invite you in there as well.
Not yet. That'd be great if you can.
Cool. Yeah, I will go ahead and do that. So yeah, so I think that's it for the meeting today. I'll post up the notes sometime this weekend. So see you all in 2 weeks.